We now have the total income, which is negative, so a total loss with less operating expenses. So for your expenses, you know how together we come to the debit side and pick all of them, the rents, the salaries, postage, telephone, etc. So let's go through. This is opening stock, we don't need it. Cash, we don't need it. Bank, we don't need it. Carriage invoice, we don't need it in the profit and loss account. It is already used. Purchases, drawings, no. Wages, we've used. Machinery is an asset. Debtors is an asset. Postage. So the first one you see is postage. Okay. But make sure you have checked for any information on postage. And dear professors, when you check, you are being told that postage of 150 is still outstanding. And outstanding means that we haven't paid, or it's in arrears, or it is accrued. So what does the principle say? The principle say add it to whatever you already have in the travel. So the postage in the travel allowance is 300. You add the 150 to it. And we are going to get a total of 450. So that also satisfies the principle that anytime you see an expense outstanding or in arrears or accrued, you add. Okay. After the postage, the next one is sundry expense. So we bring that one in. Now for the sundry expense, that one you have been told that sundry expense accrued is 200. So there is also another owing. So we'll bring the 1,700 given in the trial balance, and then we add the 200. That'll give us 1,900. After that, the next one is the rent. So rent, that one too, we are being told already we have 4,500, but we are being told that rent prepaid. So for this one, it was prepaid, and we said for prepayment you less. So we are going to less the 300 from it to get 4,200. So after that, you move on. The next one is furniture. Okay, we don't need furniture as an asset. We've dealt with closing stock, commission, rent, prepaid, postage. So we are done. So you add these expenses to give you your total expenses, which is going to be 450 plus 1,900 plus 4,200. We have 6,550. So we are supposed to less these expenses from this income, but unfortunately the income is negative. So it's going to be negative 11,400 minus 6,550, and that's going to give us 17,950, and that is a net loss. So for those of us who went through, did we get the same figure? Or even closer to it? Let me get feedback and know where you made mistakes. Was it when you were adding or lessing because it is prepaid or accrual? Let me get feedback from Prof. Alexia.
Sadly, I think first thing, the sundry expense, I didn't add the 200.
Okay.
And
Okay. So this is for you to note that you always have to check your additional information. If some of the expenses are having outstandings or arrears or owings, you add. And if it has been prepaid, you less. Okay. Prof. Sandra, what was your case?
I didn't add the additional information. I wanted to pen it before I add.
Oh, okay. So when you are given the additional information, you always have to do it concurrently. As you pick the figure, you check the additional information for any information on it. For fun, how did it go out to end?
Yeah, so the rent and then the postage. I didn't also add the additional information, so
Okay.
I made mistakes there.
Okay. Anyway, fair enough. So if this was an exam, I'm sure you'd have thought, majority of the marks, right? Because from the sales to the gross loss, you would have gotten those things. You would have gotten the discount received, and then so one, 2, 3. These 3 amounts you couldn't. Okay. So please, next time when you are given the additional information, factor them into your preparation of the account. Now let's go to the balance sheet and finish it quickly. So please, when we finish the balance sheet, I'll give you a similar question for you to go through. Okay. And I don't want to rush you. The reason why I'm taking this small is if I rush you and we do a lot at a time, in fact, your brains are going to cry out. Okay. That is why I want us to be very familiar with the first 4 adjustments before we add on this provision for depreciation and bad debt. So I'll keep on giving you questions. Please solve them. Don't worry about, oh, I've gotten it wrong or whatever. Submit. Let me go through. When we note your mistakes, we correct them. Okay. So let's look at the balance sheet as at 31st December 2005. Okay, so we put in 3 columns. Okay. Then the format, we begin with fixed assets. Fixed assets. So let's go through this question and see the fixed assets given in the question. Fixed assets are at the debit side, right? So please help me figure out the fixed assets.
Machinery.
Okay, so we have the machine, the machinery. Apart from the machinery, do we have any other? I think we also have the furniture as well. Furniture. Okay. So we put in the cost. There are no depreciations here, so we put it straight away. Machine is 100,000, furniture is 35,000. And these are the 2 assets given in this question. So the total is 135,000. Total fixed assets. So after your fixed asset, you move on to your current assets. And last time I took us through how to arrange your current assets. So I'm listening. What current assets do we have? Whoever is ready can talk to me between Prof. Frank and our current assets.
Debtors.
Debtors, okay. So I told you that the first one should be your stock, your closing stock. Your first current asset should be your closing stock. So we pick our closing stock. Please don't pick the opening stock, the closing stock. 8,000. After that, then you move on to the debtors. Okay. And the debtors is 27,000. Okay. After the debtors, you remember there was expenses prepaid and income accrued. So my dear, we have all seen in this question that there were some prepayment and accrual. You have to check the question, which of them is a current asset. And if I'm to go back, we agreed that the prepaid expenses are current assets. So if you have some in the question, you have to show it. And in this question, we're given that there was a prepayment, and that prepayment was an expense prepaid, which is rent. So you have to indicate that rent prepaid. Then you put the figure there, how much? 300. So you now understand the point I made, that for expenses prepaid, you less in the profit and loss account. In the balance sheet, it is a current asset. So if you check the rent prepaid, okay, the rent prepaid in the profit and loss account, we less it. We less the 300. And then in the balance sheet, we are showing that as a current asset. Okay. After that, the next one, that's the only expense prepaid, right? Then you also check for accrued income, any income in arrears. And you all saw that the commission, which is an income, was in arrears. So we have to also bring that commission in arrears, which is 100. And it also satisfies the principle that when an income is in arrears or accrued, you add, okay, to the income, and in the balance sheet, it is a current asset. So you see that the commission in arrears, we added it, we added the 100 in the profit and loss account. In the balance sheet, we are showing it as a current asset. So that is how they play out. So after that, you now look for your bank and cash. So in this question, we have bank, which is 10,000. And then do we also have cash? Yes, we have cash of 5,000. Okay, so these are your current assets. So please always remember stock, debtors, prepaid expenses, which you should find in your additional information, accrued income or any income in arrears. Then you click on your cash and bank. So let's get the total current assets. Okay, so the total current asset is 50,400. After that, the next thing we do is to less the current liabilities. And I think we also went through the current liabilities. I told you they are your creditors, bank overdraft, expenses accrued or owing, and then income prepaid. So let's check this question. And we'll see the first one, which is the creditors, 12,000. Creditors, 12,000. After that, bank overdraft. Now, bank overdraft has a credit balance. So if you see bank with a credit balance, that is a bank overdraft. But here, the bank has a debit balance and it's a current asset. So we don't have any bank overdraft. After that, you look for the expenses owings. And you all agree that we're given some expenses which were accrued or owed or outstanding. And that's the postage and then the sundry expense. So the postage outstanding, as well as the sundry expense accrued. So we bring them here. The postage is 150. The sundry expense is 200. You see that this also satisfies the principle that when you see an expense in arrears or outstanding, you add, and in the balance sheet is a current liability. So let me show you. For expenses accrued or outstanding, we add. Then the balance sheet is a current liability. Okay. So these are the only liabilities we have. So total current liabilities. That is giving us 12,000 plus 150 plus 200. That's 12,350. So when you less the current liabilities from the current asset, then you now get what we call the working capital, which you push under the third column to be added on to the fixed asset. So when you add the working capital to the fixed asset, then you get the figure we call the net total asset. The net total. Okay. I want to believe we are all okay up to this point. If there are questions, please ask me. Okay. So after that, we go to the finance by, and the first thing we show is our capital. Capital. The capital given in this question is 200,000. Okay. And from our format, when you bring the capital, you less drawings and you add any profit or loss from your profit and loss account. So here we have a drawings. So we less drawings of 9,000. And then in this question, we had a net loss. So we are also going to less the net loss. If it was a profit, you add. But here we had a net loss. So we are going to less the 17,950. That's the net loss. Okay. So let's do it and see what we get as the closing capital. We are getting 173,050. Remember, the last thing is for any long-term liability, which is loan. In this question, you don't see any loan. Okay, when you check the credit side, because liabilities have credits balances, you don't see any loan. So this question has no long-term liability. Hence, what you get after adjusting the drawings and the net loss will be the capital employed. And the capital employed should always be equal to the net total asset. In this case, we had it equal. And that ends the requirement for this question. So I want to believe we are all okay up to this point. Please, it takes practice for you to grasp these things. You have to solve a lot of questions. Okay. Now, in summarizing what we've done so far, I wanted us to apply the knowledge of accrued expenses, prepaid expense, accrued income, prepaid income. I have indicated to you that the accrued, sometimes referred to as accrual, is the same as owings, okay, or unpaid, or outstanding, or in arrears. Okay, so you can refer to any of them, right? And then the prepaid means you are paid in advance. So the prepaid is also the same as advance. So we are saying that if it is accrued, owings, unpaid, or outstanding, we add in the profit and loss. But for prepaid, we less. In the balance sheet, remember to take them either as a current asset or current liability, depending on what you are looking at. Okay. Dear professors, any question for me? Prof. Alexia, Prof. Sandra, Prof. Frank. Are we okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that. So we have some minutes left in our last session. This is what I'm going to do. I'll put a similar question in the page. Please, this time, don't go silent on me. Solve it and push your answers into the private pages for me to mark. I'm begging you, my lovely professors. Just that maybe I'll modify some of the terms or expenses, but it's going to be about these 4 adjustments. Okay. But if you even pay attention in this question, we only had the income in arrears, expense prepaid, and then expenses accrued. We didn't have the income prepaid, right? Now let me be specific and tell you that in WASI, they examine more of the expenses prepaid and accrued than the income. Okay. But as you are learning, you have to learn all. Okay, so my dear professors, I think I'll end this lesson here. Share the question in the page. Please use the remaining time to finish it, and then we'll move on as and when necessary. Thank you very much.